It is Wednesday, September 19th, 2018. You are tuned into One Wrestling Video, and this is NXT. My name is Jargo. I'm the NXT digital reporter for One Wrestling Video. Tonight's show, the final show from this set of tapings, will be documenting that show as well as Week 3 of the Mae Young Classic. Lots to talk about, so let's go ahead and jump into this week's episode. This week's show kicks off with women's division action as Dakota Kai and Deonna Purrazzo taking on Lacey Evans and Aaliyah. Okay, first things first. This has to be addressed. Do not do the whoop whoop chant at Deonna Purrazzo. That is so damn disrespectful. Just stop. Stop with the Candice wrestling chants. Stop with the whoop whoop towards Deonna Purrazzo. Just let them be their own stars. There is no need to keep throwing the fact that who they're dating or who they're married to in their face. Just let them be their own people. It's rude. She's her own star. Leave Marty out of this. Now let's talk about the match. Deonna and Lacy start things off. As we've talked about several times on this show, I am not a Lacey Evans guy, but I really enjoyed the chemistry between these two girls and what they seem to share. As well, I enjoyed the chemistry between Dakota and Aaliyah, but Deonna versus Aaliyah, not so much. I'm not sure that we ever really got Evans versus Dakota for a very long span in this match. Aaliyah is looking more and more like the dark-haired Carmella on a daily basis, and now screaming like her as well. Just stop. It's bad enough when Carmella does it, and it's not any good when you do it either. This is a very well put together paint-by-numbers tag match with Deonna taking the brunt of the punishment and Dakota getting the hot tag against the heels. Blind tag from Evans when Dakota is in the O'Connor roll on Aaliyah. A women's right, and down goes Dakota and Purrazzo to Lacey Evans and Aaliyah. Why? I have absolutely no idea. I didn't understand the booking of this match to begin with. I don't understand why we're giving Lacey Evans and Aaliyah a win over Deonna Purrazzo and Dakota Kai. Doesn't make any sense to me, but once again, I am just not a Lacey Evans guy. We go backstage to Velveteen Dream meeting with reporters. Dream says he's carrying around momentum from Brooklyn after beating EC3 and Johnny Failure. Dream is asked about an Aleister Black investigation, and Dream puts off the reporters, saying, "You have the opportunity to interview the Dream, and you ask questions about someone who's not the Dream? Get a clue." And he turns around and walks away. Great stuff from Velveteen Dream. Next out, we have the Street Profits doing Street Profits things, like playing basketball and fighting for their gold chains. Both of these vignettes, very, very well done. But Velveteen Dream is a star and has a real grasp on his character. The Street Profits, well, they're the Street Profits. And this whole thing just seems incredibly disjointed. And for some reason, it seems we're going to get another Street Profits versus the Mighty match at some point. Can we just move on from that, please? Back from break, and we're talking about Nikki Cross versus Bianca Belair in the situation after nothing was resolved with these two ladies after last week's no contest. It seems Belair wants a bit more of the bat-crazy Nikki Cross, and I'm sure the Banshee will be happy to play with Bianca again. Next out, we have Jackson Ryker of the Forgotten Sons. Ryker taking on Humberto Carrillo, this week representing the Job Squad. This is a complete squash for the former Gunner. 3 weeks now of the Forgotten Sons. We had a tag match 2 weeks ago. Last week we had the vignette. This week we get the third part of the Forgotten Sons in Jackson Ryker. I don't really know what these guys' gimmick is. I don't know what was forgotten about them. Like, I still remember when Buddy Murphy was a tag team champion with Wesley Blake. They had Alexa Bliss as their manager. Like, I remember that. I remember when Jackson was in TNA and he was known as Gunner. I don't know what they're forgotten about. And I don't know who their daddy is. They're the sons of the Forgotten, whoever the Forgotten may be. We then get a video recap. No, I'm sorry. We don't get the video recap. That comes after Candice LeRae is shown meeting with William Regal, investigating the Aleister Black situation that seems to keep going on and on and on. She seems convinced that it's Ciampa that is the one that took out the former champion. She also provides a bit of an alibi for Johnny Gargano as the plot thickens. I'm starting to wonder if anybody cares anymore, though. This thing has been going on now for what? 4, 5 weeks? Can we get to some kind of a resolution here? I understand Aleister Black is supposed to be back at the next set of tapings. Hopefully we can wrap this thing up, because I'm pretty done with it at this point. Then we go to the video package, recapping the Ricochet and Pete Dunne feud. For a quick build, this whole program has been very, very well done, especially with two baby faces that are just going to be facing off for each other's championships. Back from the break, and we get a pre-taped vignette introducing us to Keith Lee and his meaning of limitless. This comes across as a very babyface gimmick, almost like a motivational speaker kind of thing, and then he goes into his catchphrase, "Bask in my glory." That's a completely heel thing to say, so I'm not really sure how we're supposed to feel about Keith Lee at this point. We also get a recap of the Lars Sullivan and EC3 feud. Lars will be in action next week, and Nigel said that this is his return match. I just supposed to forget when he destroyed Raul Mendoza last week? Lars will be in action next week, and I guess we'll see if EC3 has been cleared. We also get an announcement that Otis of Heavy Machinery will be taking on your NXT champion, Tommaso Ciampa, next week. For one reason or another, I'm really hoping that Ciampa just squashes Otis, because there's absolutely no reason that Otis should be going even 50-50 with your NXT champion, Tommaso Ciampa. At 33 minutes past the hour, Ricochet makes his entrance, and it looks like they are really going to give Ricochet and Pete Dunne plenty of time here. I'm just really hoping this thing doesn't end in an Undisputed Era DQ. And this match is absolutely incredible. I could give you the play-by-play, ladies and gentlemen, but this is absolutely worth going out of your way to watch. This match goes about 21 minutes before, of course, Undisputed Era interfere, disqualification. Been telling you for 3 weeks that was going to happen. I was hoping I was wrong. Sometimes I hate it when I'm right. Then out comes the artist formerly known as War Machine, and they run off the Undisputed Era. It seems as though this is just building to War Games, and it's going to be Ricochet, Pete Dunne, the artist formerly known as War Machine, locked inside of the cage with the Undisputed Era. I'm wondering if this is going to be 4-on-4, if we're going to include another team in this thing. I hate November when it comes to the WWE. I'm not a fan of the War Games gimmick. Don't get me wrong, I loved it back in the day, but I don't care for the WWE interpretation. I also am not a big fan of Survivor Series. I'm also not watching anything coming out of Saudi Arabia. So maybe I'll just take November off. Actually sounds like a good idea. Let's flip things over to the Mae Young Classic. Your first matchup features two returning superstars as we get to see Kavita Devi, our first Indian woman in the WWE, who was also in last year's Mae Young Classic. She is taking on former Divas champion Kaitlyn tonight. Really, the biggest takeaway here was Mitchell Cole's openness on commentary for the way that he talked about a lot of the women in Season 3 of NXT long before its current inception. As far as the match itself goes, definitely one of the weaker matchups of the tournament thus far. Very paint by numbers, which when done right, inside of the context like the opening tag match on NXT this week, can be good. This match, very, very flat, aside from the return of Kaitlyn, and perhaps that's why they matched up Kaitlyn with Kavita Devi. In the end, Kaitlyn wins this match with a huge spear. 1, 2, 3. I think it's probably the right move. Kavita Devi, at this point, we've seen her in 2 years of the Mae Young Classic now. We also saw her in the Women's Battle Royal back at WrestleMania. She's not progressing nearly as well as I think anybody had hoped, even though she gets tons of hits out of India on the YouTube account. Kaitlyn looks like Kaitlyn. I mean, it doesn't really look as though she's lost a step. If you thought Kaitlyn was great back in the day, Jersey, I'm looking at you. If you thought Kaitlyn was great back in the day, more Kaitlyn for you. As far as where she stands inside of some of the women that we have seen inside of this tournament, a little behind. It's going to be interesting to see how Kaitlyn fits in with this new crop of women. Your second matchup of the night is one of the biggest feuds in Progress women's history, as Jinny takes on the returning Mae Young Classic veteran Toni Storm. Absolutely no disappointment, as you can tell immediately these two women know each other incredibly well. Both these women absolutely fantastic. It's a shame this matchup had to happen in round 1. That said, perhaps if you're not going to really elevate Jinny throughout the tournament, rather just debut her, maybe this really is the best way to do so against somebody like Toni Storm, who we know knows her very, very well. Let me know what you think. Hit me on Twitter, @NotJargo. Let me know what you thought of this matchup. Toni gets the well-earned win here after escaping her arch-nemesis. Huge German suplex, hip attack, and then the Tiger Driver to win the match. I'm curious how Jinny is going to go over with that WWE audience. Of course, we all love Toni Storm. Jinny's really, really good, but there's so much UK strong style in her style, I'm not sure that the American audience is going to connect with it. Karen Q of Women of Honor fame is up next, taking on Xia Li. Xia Li, a second-year Mae Young Classic competitor, and I heard tonight during the commentary that last year her Mae Young Classic match was her very first match in the ring. So we have a one-year veteran taking on Karen Q, who you may have seen in the Women of Honor Championship tournament. Very cool kung fu sequence to start off the match. What started as a show of respect quickly turns to disrespect as Karen Q turns heel very early in this match. Q, the much more experienced of the two women here, commentary does a great job of telling Xia Li's story early in the match. These two women have great chemistry, but at times the match feels a bit too rehearsed for my liking. After a flipping axe kick, Xia Li moves on, which I consider a bit of an upset, but a very good match between these two ladies. My biggest complaint is the show of respect after the match, when the entire story of the match was the disrespect from Karen Q. I understand that they like to have the women all shake hands and hug each other at the end of every match, but you know, sometimes the story that you tell in the match is much more important than the story that you're telling outside of it. Your main event match features two former Impact knockouts as Allison Kay and Mia Yim go face to face once again. They do a great job of telling this story and the rivalry between these two ladies in the video package, without getting into specifics, of course. Fantastic match. Quite the slugfest between these two at the start of things. No feeling out process here whatsoever. After a great sequence on the floor, back and forth between these two ladies, Yim goes for a huge chop, misses, and smacks the post. After which Kay goes to work. A dueling chant of "Let's go Mia" and "Pinkies up" breaks out amongst the Full Sail faithful. Back vertical, and these two go into a battle spot, just smacking the hell out of one another. Both women go down, and we get a little bit of a reset. After a huge sunset bomb from Yim and a believable 2 count, Yim picks up Kay so she can eat the big D. Yeah, Viscous Lariat. Where did your mind go? Get it out of the gutter, you dirty people, you. She snaps back at the ref after a slow 2 count. Huge kick from Yim, and both women are down again. Yim goes up to the top. Kay meets her there, only to be met by Mim's finish, the soul food, and to be put down by the 3. Great matchup, and it's going to be very interesting to see if the injury to Mia Yim's hand plays into the story going into round 2. So that's going to wrap things up for this week's edition of This is NXT. Thanks for watching, and if you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button and the little bell so that you're always notified of all the new content here at One Wrestling Video. Hit me on Twitter @NotJargo. Let me know what you thought of this week's episode. Then head over to hittingthemarks.podbean.com so you never miss any of the content from myself or my tag team partner Rick Vickery on the Hitting the Marks Pro Wrestling Podcast. We'll talk to you next week here on This is NXT. For One Wrestling Video, this is Jargo, signing off.